Hello class, welcome to part 1, Introduction to Creativity and Rationale for the module. So my name is Chris and I'm going to be leading this Continuing Professional Development module. It's a 5-part module and this is part 1, and I'll be leading this online course on creativity. So this initial lecture will introduce you to the class, get you thinking about creativity critically in the health profession setting, as well as address any questions or problems that we have with the online module. All right, so the purpose of this is for those who are in healthcare or health professions education exclusively, or those who have a teaching component to their clinical practice. So for example, someone who works in an academic setting who takes on students, say a doctor who takes on clerks, or a paramedic who takes on students for their preceptorship. I aim in this module to inspire you as educators to appreciate creativity as the important topic that it is in educational settings. So through my learning experiences in my Masters of Education program, I've come to appreciate how creativity addresses a lot of the things that we talk about as intangible within the health professions education. And I'll further elaborate on this topic, but my objective through this 5-part series, we can call it, is to really inspire you to think about how we can utilize creativity and how we can select applicants that are creative and how this can translate to improved clinical practice and more innovation within a clinical setting and within a research setting. Okay, so just a quick overview of how I've organized the class. Like I said, there's 5 parts. Each part should take about an hour. I've put 1 to 2 hours. It just depends really on how in-depth you want to go on the readings or how long it takes you to do the activities. Each video that I produce, including this one, should be approximately 10 minutes long, no more than 10 minutes for sure. And then that will take us through a PowerPoint presentation. Within the Edmodo website, which you've already gone on to see this video, you'll find that there is an Edmodo video, or there is a screencast video on the Edmodo site, like the one you've opened now. And in each video, I'll be following a PowerPoint presentation that I made. I've also made available that PowerPoint presentation on the website so that if I go through something too quickly or you want to review something, or for example, in this presentation I have an activity, if you want to take more time on the activity, then you'll just open that PowerPoint presentation yourself on your computer. It's important that we have computers that can support some of the media that I've put on it, including this screencast, and of course this course counts as credit for CME, or also as we would call a continuing professional development credit. Okay, so here we go. What is creativity, the key concept? And it's sort of my hope, to be honest, and my impression that most of you as educators in the health professions haven't necessarily come across this term. Myself, this was the case, and I'd only ever thought of it as applied to, say, the fine arts or music or drama. I never really thought about the term as applying in the medical setting. So it's my impression that this might be a new concept to you, and I want to challenge your thinking and your thinking about how we practice with creativity and how we evaluate creativity throughout this class. So most definitions of creativity include the word originality. And I think that this is really important, that originality is really synonymous with creativity. And most definitions that you find in the literature or that I've found are either focused on a product or the person themselves. One definition that I really like, that I've taken from a textbook on creativity, is by Perkins in 1988. He defines creativity as a creative result is a result that is both original and appropriate. A creative person is a person who fairly routinely produces creative results. So I think this encompasses how I think about creativity, and I hope this gets everybody thinking about what creativity is. Originality is very linked to it. In my understanding, I think of innovation too, and I think of problem solving, and I think that these, as we'll later discuss, are very important and critical terms within medical professions, terms that we already use, and I'd like to link creativity to that. Okay, so for our first activity, I want to do a little bit of an art activity, something that I did in my master's program with regards to creativity, and it will involve drawing. So what I'd like is I'd like you to grab a pen and a piece of paper, and what I'd like you to do is to try to draw the picture that I've just produced, this funny cartoon of a hospital, and then appropriate to me, I've put these ambulances here, or I have these ambulances in the picture. But what I'd like you to do in this drawing is not just try to draw it. What I want to do is it's an activity on using negative space. So what you'll see is there's sky in the background of this frame. What I'd like you to do is draw only the negative space. So don't draw the buildings. Don't draw the trees. Don't draw the ambulances here. What I'd like you to do is to just, on your paper, without tracing it, go through the perimeter, drawing just this negative space. So you're going to go through, you're going to draw what will look like a variety of rectangles, just like this. Go through and draw these buildings. And what I want you to do is realize as you go through this drawing exercise, and I'm terrible at drawing, so there's no need to show what you've drawn, nor is there to be good at it, but I want you to focus on looking at this image differently than you would normally. So in other words, I want you to focus on looking past the buildings and focusing on that negative space, which in this case is the sky. So take your time with this, pause the video, try your best to trace this negative space. Okay, now that you're back and hopefully you have your drawing done, the reason why I brought up this activity is I wanted to get us in the mindset of looking at things from a different perspective, looking at things creatively, and thinking about how this applies or can apply to how we solve problems, for example, within a clinical setting, or how we approach patients that are different or present differently within a setting, and how difficult it can be to actually shift your focus from what immediately pops out, which is the buildings, the hospital, the trees, and instead focus on that negative space. And I find this to be a really difficult exercise, but in some respects very useful, because it makes you look at something from a different perspective. And hopefully that inspires you to see how it's useful to cultivate creativity in order to look at things from a different perspective. Okay, so now that we're sort of primed on creativity, let's talk about where in the health professions we stand on creativity. So, creativity, to be honest, in literature is a rather sparse topic. We see creativity sometimes come up with regards to teaching strategies, such as creative innovations in health professions education, like problem-based learning, but only in a few circumstances will you find, or at least that I have found, where we're talking about creativity as a competency, as a health professional, that is something that's addressed specifically, say, in an educational curriculum. I think that this is a little unfortunate, because I think it is in fact very important to have health professions that can think divergently and that can be creative within a setting. I think that it's important to problem solving, and I hope that as we discuss more throughout this course that we come to appreciate this. So one lasting question on creativity, now that we're sort of getting into it, I'd like you to think about how can creativity stand to benefit a patient? And that's a really tough question, and a question that I think is important whenever we introduce something new or different within an educational context, is having it focused on patient care, which is ultimately the best goal. Okay, so the next thing to do is to go back to the Edmodo site, or you can use the reference that I've provided here, and to go on the university's website, or use the link that I've provided on the website to get to the university's website to read the reading that I've chosen for this particular module. It's very short, but I think it's quite profound in what they discuss. And it really got me thinking a lot about creativity and how it addresses certain shortcomings or challenges that we all recognize exist within medical practice and in the new age of medical practice. So what I'd like to have you do is pause the video, open up the reading, and complete it. It's not very long. It should take about 10 minutes, give or take. And what I want you to think about is these questions that I've put here. So where do I see creativity in my own practice? How has creativity been lost, maybe, perhaps through the years? Or how does the reading describe creativity being lost? And what elements do we lose this idea of being able to think divergently or think on your feet? And then I want you to also think about how does creativity affect your own personal job satisfaction, and think about how the article discusses this. Okay, so now that you've finished reading the article, I'd like to get everybody's take on it. I'd like to see if this article challenged your thinking as much as it did mine when I read it for the first time. And I've put up a poll here, so you'll click on this link, it'll go to a poll, and you'll provide a response to the question that I've asked, which is basically to do with how your impression has changed before and after this reading. So finally, the last thing I'd like to just touch on and to sort of summarize, how does creativity apply in the health professions? So to go back 2-3 slides, I asked the question, how can creativity stand to benefit a patient? This is how I see some of it applying in all of our work settings as health professionals. So first, when we use the terminology or the term the art of medicine, which is quite commonly used, I think of creativity as lending itself very well to this, as being able to think on your feet and to be able to get that intangible feel that we talk about with clinical assessment. I think this speaks to a clinician's humanistic traits, as well as it speaks to how you can individualize your care for the individual nature of patients. Finally, I think that creativity is extremely significant in creating new elements of healthcare plans, especially when we talk about long patient wait times, and how, from an administrative point of view, we can additionally go about addressing problems that we have in our healthcare models. Okay, so that's all that I have for Module 1. I hope you enjoyed it. Take note of the readings. If there's any questions, you can post on the Edmodo site, the open discussion board, and I encourage everybody to discuss where they're coming from and how this topic fits into their professional life. Thanks very much. Bye for now.